Oh, it's been a minute. To be fair, of all of the hiatuses that I've had, this has been one of my shorter ones. And I can't really say that, like, I'm coming back, because honestly, I'm never actually coming back. I'm coming back, but I'm not coming back, you know? This is a very toxic relationship where I'm like here and I say I love you, and then I just leave to hang out with your best friend over on TikTok. This video is already going so well. If you haven't noticed, and I wouldn't expect you to because, like, my face is right here, but I finally have bookshelves. And I've had bookshelves in the past, but they've always been like mainstays, like store brand, cheap bookshelves that start sagging within like 2 weeks. And over the past several years, I haven't had proper bookshelves. I had my books organized in one of those like cube cubby shelves for a minute, and that was like very small percentage of my books. But now I actually properly have all of my books out here displayed looking gorgeous. When I say all of my books, it's not entirely accurate. I still have some like anthologies and textbooks and stuff that are hidden in a way. So to say that this is the entirety of my book collection isn't accurate, but it's the majority of it. And so I'm happy. And every time I look over into this corner of my home, I just get really excited because it's like my babies finally have a home. I could honestly do a whole video just talking about how excited I am to have proper bookshelves. The vision is not yet complete. I eventually want to get them up to the ceiling. My ultimate dream is to have like one of those rolling ladders. I am content with where we're at for the moment. That is far off in the future, but this is where we are. I'm excited for it. And so in order to kind of celebrate the bookshelves, but also because I really want to make YouTube content, I'm just terrible at coming up with ideas sometimes. I want to revisit an old trend that existed way back like 10 years ago on YouTube. And that is book tags, because I feel like they just sort of died off. People don't really do them anymore. And I feel like that's a horrible shame. So I would like to do a few different book tags across a few different videos. And for this one, I want to do the first book tag that I ever did, which was like 11, maybe 12 years ago now, which is wild. Back in the days where I was known as Erin Wilson because I wasn't allowed to use my real name online, and now I'm like, if you want to come kidnap me, good luck. So the day and night book tag, it's basically just a series of questions, and each one of them begins with one of the letters in the term day and night. So the first 3 questions, first 3 letters make up the word day. Second 3 questions, the first letters make up the word and you get the idea. Basically, there's 11 questions. First letter of each question comes up to say day and night. So we're going to do that one because it's been 11 years and I'm sure that my answers have changed. If you want to see what my original day and night book tag was, it'll be in the card, whatever side that lands on, and probably also at the end of this video in one of the little end card things. So yeah, without further ado, let's start the day and night book tag. First question, do you read more in the morning or at night? I feel like I am generally more of a night owl. I don't really do anything in the morning. Here lately, I have had maybe not the most healthy relationship with reading, where I will go literally weeks without reading anything, and then I will sit down and just finish a book in a day. So generally, I would say more in the evening, more at night. Second question, are there any books that changed the way you thought about things? I feel like any book that doesn't do that is a failure. This is a very, very broad question that I am going to read entirely too deeply into, because I feel like every book that I read changes something about how I view the world. I think the last book talk that I posted was Lightlark, if I'm not mistaken. And that one, for all of the problems that I had with it, it gave me some insight into what I enjoy in a story and what works and what doesn't work in storytelling, which, given that things is such a vague term, is part of it changing the way I think about things. I presume that this question is probably more like thinking in terms of life philosophy, in which case Craft in the Real World was wonderful. So this is like one of those books for writers for thinking about how to write and everything. And I loved this one so much. This is one that I would recommend to anyone who's thinking about getting into writing, who's interested in storytelling. One of the really interesting themes that this book goes into is how craft and how we approach writing and storytelling is both a reflection of the culture that it comes from, but it also, in some ways, shapes how the culture is perceived. One of my favorite quotes that I have like a little star by is, "Craft tells us how to see the world." And that was just, I don't know, this one just really sticks with me. Fahrenheit 451 is, I think, another one that has just a lot of really interesting thoughts, but the big thing that comes to mind is how strongly some people believe that they are doing the right thing when in fact they are not, but they don't know any better. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, also very similar idea, where this book did an amazing job at creating a villain. If you don't know, I did a book talk on this one. This is from Snow's perspective in The Hunger Games, so this is like 50 years before we ever meet Katniss. And you really get a sense of why he is the way he is and where his beliefs come from. And you understand his beliefs. You don't have to like agree with him, but you understand where he's coming from. I think that is really strong and really important when we're thinking about people who seem evil, people who give off just like evil vibes. They think that they are in the right. Anytime I talk to anybody about good storytelling and about villains, I always emphasize that villains do not typically see themselves as the villain. Like sometimes when we're getting into like cartoony things like Phineas and Ferb or Assistant to the Villain, they're like, "Ooh, I'm the villain, I'm an evil person," whatever. But the majority of the time, the true villains think that they are the heroes. This book was a great reminder of that, and it executed it so well. Paper Towns too. I'm just gonna go through a whole list of books here, and we're not gonna ever move on to the next question, but I promise this is the last one. Part of it is because I read Paper Towns at such a young age. I read it when it was pretty new, before I even really knew who John Green was, when I was just kind of getting into young adult. This book came out circa 2008, and I want to say I read it right around that time, 2008, 2009, 2010 at the latest. So I would have been kind of in the ages between 10 and 12, and I think the big message in this book is that people are not always who you think they are, and a lot of times we tend to project our ideas onto other people, and we see similarities of them in ourselves and vice versa, and so we create this image of these people in our brains, but that's not necessarily who they are. But then also this idea of like, we create this idea of somebody in our head, and then we try to make them fit. And the way that we treat them is a matter of trying to make them fit, which I know I said this was the last one, but this is actually a play, not a book, so it doesn't count. Disgrace was a play that covers the same idea, much more violent, much more dark, much more politically incorrect, beautifully done, haunting, amazing. Read the play, watch the play if you can. It's amazing. Moving on, YA or not. I feel like it's pretty obvious where I stand on that. YA is very much where my heart is. That's young adult is really what made me want to become a writer. And I feel like for as many poorly done young adult books as there are out there, there are just as many terrible adult books and children's books. Young adult gets a very bad rap. And I think part of it comes down to, as much as I love Twilight, it's a dumpster fire. And everybody looks to Twilight as like the prime example of what young adult is. It really isn't. So all in all, yes, I am very much a YA kind of person. Are there characters that you honestly believe are real? Yes and no. When books are put out there, and especially when they get really popular, like The Hunger Games, like Divergent, like Twilight, people see a lot of themselves in characters. And oftentimes authors do put a lot of themselves into characters, whether directly or indirectly, and not necessarily all of themselves into a particular character. Like, I highly doubt Chuck Palahniuk is the same as Tyler Durden, for instance. But using Fight Club as the example, it's such an influential book. It's such a cult classic. Everybody knows the movie. I'm breaking all the rules here. We're talking about Fight Club. There are people who essentially, in some way, shape, or form, become the narrator, become Tyler Durden. So in a literal sense of like, am I going to meet Bella Swan one day? No. But in the more sort of metaphorical sense of seeing ourselves in characters and becoming a character ourselves, yes. Let's also consider, I have memoirs. Joan Didion is a very literal real person, so there's that too. Nobody touches my books, or I don't mind loaning my books out. Part of this depends on who the person is and what the book is. I know that I am a terrible person and I suck at returning books when people loan them to me. That's part of why, even though I love libraries and I will always encourage go to your local library, I am not a good person to go to a library because I will forget about the book and it will just become mine, and that's not a good practice. I also tend to annotate when I read, which libraries tend not to appreciate. And so sometimes I'm cool with loaning books out, but I've had bad experiences with people borrowing my books. I have the Infernal Devices over here that I was missing for 2 or 3 years because I loaned them out to somebody who I was dating at the time, and we broke up, and then it took forever to get them back. And I'm very appreciative that I did get them back, although part of me kind of wishes that I didn't, because I have one in paperback and the rest are hardcover, and I hate that. I think they also got a little bit of water damage that I don't believe was there previously. So it depends on the person, truly. Like my spouse, I know where he lives, so I can hunt him down if he doesn't return my book in good condition, or I can just tell him that he owes me a new copy. I don't know if I really answered that question, but I feel like I don't really have a proper answer to that question, so we're gonna move on to the next question. Do you ever smell your books? I mean, I feel like half the joy of having physical copies is being able to just pick up a book and just smell it. Like, new books are great because they have that sort of fresh toner smell, and older books are great because they have that sort of dusty old smell. I can't really smell a whole lot right now because I'm getting over a cold, but it's there. So we are moving in tonight, which is exciting. We're halfway through and I've been recording for 20 minutes, so this is going great. Not everyone loves books. Is this a positive or a negative? It is a series of pros and cons. I think it's an amazing thing that not everybody enjoys the same things. That is the wonderful thing about humanity, is we can all enjoy different things. We know that books have a lot of benefits. So I have been very vocal in my distaste for book banning. My concern tends to be in that the people who don't like books tend to be the ones who advocate for book banning. This is not a 1-to-1 ratio of you don't like books, so you're advocating for book banning, but I definitely feel like there is a higher correlation of non-readers calling for book banning than readers calling for book banning. So while it's great that we don't all love the same thing, and that does allow for more directions of thought and more ideas to spread in the world, there are also those caveats of it's not always a great thing. I've done a lot of videos on book banning and censorship, so if you want more of my thoughts on that, those are out there. I keep my books in the best condition, or maybe not. Which are you? I've already made the note that I annotate when I read, which makes me not so great for borrowing library books. So I don't know how well you can see, but the paperbacks, the spines are a little worn out there. I used to be very precious about my books and wanting them to be in pristine condition. And the idea of annotating and marking in my books or cracking the spines just felt blasphemous to me. But I think over the years, I've come to learn that the part of a book that is, for lack of a term, sacred really is the ideas contained within the book, not the book itself. The book is just the vessel. I can crack the spine and it doesn't impede the ability of the words to reach me. Gosh, I have too many books. True or false? Never, honestly. My spouse will very much tell you that I have too many, but I don't think that there's such a thing as too many books. For one, just again, looking at my bookshelf, it just brings me so much joy. So I work from home and I put this in the corner with my office stuff. Not because anyone will ever see this, every so often I have meetings where I have my camera on so they'll see some of it, but because just being here gives me a lot of joy. Even though I'm not necessarily reading while I'm working, just being around the books, being in a bookstore, being in a library brings me a lot of joy. And so having this here brings me so much joy. And I feel like if I get more books, that will increase the joy. It increases a little bit of stress because my shelves are very full and I just got these shelves and I don't have a lot of space to expand. But I don't think that there's ever too many, personally. Have you ever spilled or stained your books with something, and if so, how? Definitely more than a few times. There's the non-accidental ones, again, annotating, so I'll get ink. Sometimes that does lead to like ink smudges and everything. I am certainly not an aesthetic annotator like some of the folks online. A lot of my annotations really are just so that I am staying immersed in what I'm reading, because I do tend to wander in my brain, and so having the pen in my hand and sort of going along with the story and picking out things that are standing out to me helps me stay with it. This question is clearly more asking about accidents though, so spilling or staining. I feel like I've definitely spilled coffee on books before. I don't know if any of these books have stains necessarily. I'm trying to think. I know that there have been times that I've eaten while reading, and I know that I've gotten food in probably a couple of these books. I'm not sure which ones. We are on to the final question. The tea of night. Toned or untoned while reading? Or in other words, do you read and work out at the same time? So I did start going to the gym. I have since stopped going to the gym, but I did start going to the gym a little over a year ago. I could not. The idea of trying to like read while on treadmill or lifting weights, I don't know how people can do that. If I start moving, my eyes cannot follow this. Like sometimes I can pace slowly and read, but other than that, moving while reading, not great. Audiobooks, kind of. I did listen to most of I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy while at the gym. The issue with me and audiobooks though is I tend to lose like 70% of the things that I hear, especially if I'm not purely focused on what I'm listening to. So when I did my I'm Glad My Mom Died book talk, it was a lot of reviewing what was even in the book because it just left my brain, which is unfortunate because it was narrated beautifully. Jeanette McCurdy read it herself for the audiobook, and she did an amazing job of narrating it, and she did an amazing job of telling the story. And you could really feel the moments that she had moved past versus the moments that she was still feeling. Like that was very much coming through in her performance of the story, which it feels really weird to say performance, but that's really what an audiobook is. It's a performance. And that's where me and audiobooks have a love-hate relationship. I love audiobooks when I'm also able to read along, because then I'm able to be more fully immersed. That's actually how I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I was reading along with the audiobook. Let me tell you, that was an amazing experience. Definitely encourage listening to the audiobook while reading a book, because it's just so much more immersive and it's so much more fulfilling. And as a person who reads a lot faster than an audiobook will go, you can like increase. I think I did like 1.5 speed while I was reading along. So you lose some of the nuance in the voice, but a lot of it's still there. And especially that one in particular, beautiful. And there we have it, the day and night book tag, which was the first book tag that I ever did when I first joined YouTube, with the intentions of doing only booktube. And then we ended up going on a lot of different adventures, and sometimes we end up back with the books. Honestly, we always come back to the books, but we've gone in a lot of different directions, and we will continue to do so. This video is definitely a lot longer than the first time I did the tag, but if you're interested in seeing what me like 11, 12 years ago had to say, that's gonna be somewhere on the screen here at the end of the video. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, because I occasionally post new videos. Sometimes they're about books, sometimes they're about other things. And while you're at it, why not leave a comment down below to let me know what you thought about this. Tell me how much you enjoyed me blabbing on about books, because I enjoyed it, for sure. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
This is the day and night book tag. Okay, so the reason why it's called day and night is if you line up all the questions, the first letter of every question will spell out day and night. It's about books. So